Welcome back, listeners. I am very excited because this week on the podcast, we have Shana Caldwell, who is only 23 and going absolutely strength to strength in her young adult paranormal writing. Are you up to book 5? Is that right? But that's incredible. Go you. So I do just, so if you haven't seen any of Shana's work out there before, she has an incredible Immortal Awakening series, and the Enchantment of Darkness, that's becoming a series 2, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, duology. Yeah.
Duology. Awesome. So please tell me how this started, and because to have 5 books at your age is amazing. I need to hear this story. How did you when did you first know that you were a writer?
Probably when I was like 12.
Yeah.
I remember like I was always reading when I was younger. Like I would fly through books, and then I think I was like 12 or 13. I'm like, I want to write my own story and like just try it. So every day after school in grade 7, I'd sit on the computer and just write for like 3 hours every day for like a whole year. So I had like I called it Once in a Blue Moon. It was like a werewolf sort of book, and I look back at it now because I still have it. And I was like, it's so bad, but like, you have to start somewhere, I guess. And then when I was 16, I was like going through a really rough patch in life, and reading just like wasn't the escape I needed. So that's how Immortal Awakening started. So I started that series when I was 16.
Wow. That's incredible.
I think I wrote it, and then I went back when I was 18 to finish it. I think I published it when I was 18.
Wow. That's incredible. And so, and not only that, you've wrote it young, and I want to come back to the whole when you started this, because I do believe that writing is it's like a cathartic art too. But you've started this book, you've turned it into an incredible series, and you've chosen to self-publish. So you've completely owned your art so young. What was that like for you? What was the process of putting it out there?
So one of the ladies I work with has a niece, Kaya, and she's also a self-published author. So I reached out to Kaya when I first sort of had my manuscripts. I'm like, what do I do now? I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So she like talked me through it. She set me up with an editor. That was amazing. And then I found like a cover person online to do the cover, and I didn't really find like the interior formatting. Like I didn't really know anything about that. So I did the format myself for the Immortal Awakening series books. So it's just like your basic format. But like there's so many things I didn't know, like you have to get like an ISBN, like the copyright, like the cover, the interior design. I was like, it was so crazy.
There's a lot to uncover when you start to get into it too. It's like you're building
really
a whole product from scratch, really. Like
literally.
It's a whole thing. So you've uncovered all that, but you've just kept going. You've gone, and then did you publish the first one, and did you know that it was going to be a series when you first wrote the first one, or it kind of just turned into that?
No, I didn't. So when I wrote the first one, I'm really bad at it, but I never have an end in mind when I write. I never know what the end's going to be. So like I got to like the final 4 chapters of Immortal Awakening, and I'm like, okay, we're going to do this, and we might make this just 2 books maybe. And then I wrote the second one, and I'm like, well, I can't just leave it like that. So now I need to have a third one. And the third one is the biggest out of the series. It's like double both of the first ones in thickness.
Yeah. So. They are beautiful books altogether, though. They sit together well as such a gorgeous series. You've done such an incredible job, and I know it's just going to like keep growing as it is. But what was your starting process of writing? Was just going home and writing after school and writing after work? Is that still your process now? Is there anything else that you have to kind of get in that zone?
I don't do school anymore. I'm finished. I just work part-time at like my local grocery store. So it's like I still have a lot of time in a day, and I get days off. So mostly on the days off, I just sit down and I dedicate the whole day to writing.
Yeah.
So I usually do that, or sometimes I'll get inspiration. I'll be up until midnight writing, which happened last week with a book I'm working on. So it's like very sporadic sometimes.
Yeah. But then you've got to balance the whole business side of it alongside of that as well with being a self-published author. So how do you go with that?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out like the marketing side of things, because when I first published my books, I wasn't really didn't know what to do with the marketing side. So now I'm sort of trying to learn how to do the advertising, the marketing, like the mock-up photos, and like get it like more out there, I guess.
Yeah. So, it's happening though. Like I honestly, the artwork of it, how you're putting yourself out there, it fully captured me in. And I was like, wow, everything that you're doing is grabbing huge attention. So that's so great. What have you got planned for, like, is this your goal to be a full-time writer and continue to publish more series?
That is like the ultimate dream goal, is to just like be able to spend my days writing, like a lot of my favorite authors do. But yeah, I just have to sort of work to get there. It's definitely like not easy, but definitely rewarding.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. It's a long process, but I just want to celebrate you because you've thrown yourself in the deep end and put yourself out there, which is step one. So, and you're continuing to write. So that's excellent. So with your favorite authors, what made you choose paranormal? Do you kind of say paranormal, or are you more leaning towards fantasy when it comes to your books? YA?
I think I chose to write paranormal for my Immortal Awakening series because it's the genre I read most at the time. So I sort of understood the basis of like the sort of theme, I guess.
Yeah.
But instead of just having it as like just a strict vampire novel, I gave them magic just to be a little bit different.
I love that.
So yeah. But Enchantment of Darkness and Enchantment of Thorns are just fantasy books, like, so they don't really have any like the vampires or anything in them.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you find the world building side of fantasy? That's one thing I haven't dabbled in. I feel like it's a lot. Yeah. How's that process for you?
I love like the world building, because like with fantasy you have so much free room to just create what you want, whereas I find when I sort of write your more like just normal fiction books, it can be a bit restricting with the worlds. But yeah, with Enchantment of Darkness, I sort of just made it up as I went.
Yeah.
It's like when I get inspiration to write, it's like I have like images in my mind of what I need to write. So it sort of gives me like a starting point as to where I want the story to go and what the world will look like.
100%. I love that. Yeah. So you're like a really visual person. You kind of see the book as you're typing it. You kind of see it unfolding behind your eyes. And what usually does, where do you draw most of your inspiration from?
Well, this is so crazy. When I got the inspiration to write Enchantment of Darkness, I was actually at work peeling apples. So it was so bizarre. Like I was just like standing there, just like my thoughts are just like spinning. I was just peeling apples, and it's like the first like paragraph in Enchantment of Darkness was like, all I saw was like a girl walking up this really muddy hill, pouring down rain. She's drenched and she's carrying a really heavy bucket of wheat. And like that's all I had to go on. So I was like, all right, I will run with it.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. You've kind of always been that, like you've had these daydreams like growing up and through your teenage years and things like that. And now you've just run with it. Go you. That is amazing. Yep. I love this so much. Is that kind of what you have when you start a book? Like how much planning is in your process when an idea hits you?
Absolutely none. Yeah. I am like a pantser, because you have your planner or your pantser.
Yeah.
So I will just run with the first idea I have. I'll make it up as I go. I usually plan the last like 10 chapters of every novel. Like I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I need to like make sure this is all going to connect for a next book, or to make sure I haven't got any loose ends at the start where I've just free wrote pretty well. So yeah, I don't plan much at the start.
No, I'm with you. Kind of, I do much the same. I like how you said that pantser and planner. I haven't heard that in a while, and it's so true. I feel like people are either or, and I also don't think it's always. I think it's great to not know the ending. I think a lot of people who are even planners, you don't really know when the ending is, because I guess you have to let the character show where they're taking you. But
yeah,
more of a character-driven person, or is it more world building for you? What kind of shows themselves to you first, I guess?
I think it's more character driven than the world. I think the world shapes around the characters I write. Yeah. With Enchantment of Darkness, with Raven, like she lost her sister when she was quite young and had a lot of guilt and blame on herself for her sister dying. And then obviously kids, no spoilers. So it's not spoilery. But there's like I was like, oh wait,
don't tell us the whole story.
Yeah. But yeah, so like her sort of goal from start to finish is that she needs to like get over her guilt and like accept that it wasn't her fault with what happened. And then when a fairy creature is in the world, because the worlds are like joined, it starts killing children of her village. So she like takes it upon herself to like rectify it, to try and make up for the past mistakes.
Yeah, wow. So you're building a lot of emotion throughout it as well. You're making the characters really real, which is like why your books are obviously taking off and starting to make waves. So yes, I'm very excited. What's next for you? What kind of, do you have is there anything you can kind of tell us of where what you're working on right now, or where's next?
I've got 2 I'm working on.
Yeah.
So I have Enchantment of Thorns coming out soon, which is a duology to Enchantment of Darkness. And I've sort of left the ending open, so if I ever wanted to continue, I could. But if I don't, it'll still be fine. But I have written a dark fantasy novel.
Oh.
I know. I think it's 150,000 words.
Wow.
So it's my biggest book I've ever written. And it's about has fairies. It's about this girl, and she lives in this little village, lives like a little quiet life, and her village gets stormed by the fairies, and she's taken back as one of the slaves to go back to the kingdom.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's dark, it's gruesome, it's a bit romantic.
Yeah.
You gotta have the romance. Yeah. So I've sort of started writing the second one for that. So I plan to make about 3 books.
Yeah. But the first one's 150. I just have to pause you for a second. So how long does a book usually take you from start to finish? Obviously that one's a little bit longer, but what's your kind of like average?
I think it took me 8 months to write Enchantment of Darkness.
Yeah.
It really just depends how much I can sit down and write at one time. Depends how much I get to finish it. I think I've been working on the dark fantasy for maybe like a year now.
Yeah.
And since it's such like a complex book, I've been over it multiple times just to make sure that I have everything where I need it to be.
Tied up. Yeah. And did you say just before you work on 2 books at once as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
The second one, it would be more like just like a romance fiction with a little bit of thriller.
Yeah.
So it's about this girl, her and her family moved to the other side of the country because before she was born, she had a brother and he was kidnapped at 6 months old. And so at the start, she's sort of really struggling now with being in her brother's shadow, who's not even there anymore. In the book, she goes across the country. I can't tell you the twist. No.
It's great. I want to hear more, but you can't. You have to. You're just gonna keep listeners wanting more. That's it.
Yeah. I'm still trying to. I really struggle to write like the synopsis at the back of my novels because it's so hard to condense them into like 200 words.
Yeah, 100%. Would you say that that is the hardest? What is the hardest process for you? Is it the synopsis, or what's your favorite part of the writing process and the hardest part?
My favorite part would be like the writing and getting the covers done and like seeing that side brought to life. The hardest part would probably be for me is I really struggle to go back and edit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I just like, my mind is just like, no, it's going to take too long. And I'm like, well, I have to do it. Like, we've got to do it. We've got to meet in the middle somewhere. But yeah, and the synopsis, it is so hard. I was like, how am I going to do this? And I'm like, I have a friend I met on like my book account, Maddie, and she's currently writing her novel as well. And I like send her my synopsis, and then she'll read it and she'll like help me edit it to like improve it.
Oh, awesome.
So it's really good to have like that support from like the other authors when you do need help.
Absolutely. Yeah. And have you created much of that? Like, because I think to be like, when you're writing something can be a very, even though it's enjoyable, it can be a very lonely experience. To have other people that are doing the same thing and to feed off at the same time can be very rewarding.
Yeah, we've actually, I made a group on Instagram. It's called Writers Retreat, and it's just
awesome.
a bunch, like a few self-published authors I know. So like we go there with like things we've found or like issues we've run into, or like we can bounce questions off each other. It's like just like a little group you can go to if you need help or if you need thoughts or anything. So it's really good.
Wow, awesome. Is it on Facebook or Instagram?
Instagram.
Perfect. I'll make sure that's all on the show notes for all the listeners as well, because that is a really great resource for anyone. Like, there are so many questions when you've finished your book of where to go to next, specifically if someone wants to self-publish. So go you.
Yeah.
You created the resource yourself.
Yeah.
This is
I always struggled when I didn't have it. And I'm like, I'm going to create a group and it'll make it easy for me and it'll make it easier for everyone else in the group.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. When it comes to that, is there any main questions or you have found that self-published authors struggle with to start off with?
Sometimes it's like getting the correct cover layout. And like sometimes you'll find, because I didn't know this, but Amazon and Ingram Spark have different file sizes for your cover. So if you get an Amazon-based cover, it won't work on Ingram Spark.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
So I didn't know that. And then what's another thing we sort of struggle with? Sometimes you'll just run into issues with Ingram Spark, like uploading files. Amazon, for some reason, you can't pre-order paperback copies, but you can pre-order the ebooks, which is really frustrating.
Yeah, there's a lot of you're dealing with the whole business side behind it. It's crazy.
Yeah. And like sometimes it'll be hard to find the right editor for like what you need to write. So we'll like give them ideas, or someone we know who does it. Like with my formatter who did Enchantment of Thorns, this is my first time using a formatter. She did such a good job. Like I sent it straight in the group chat. Like I told them how much it cost me. I'm like, she's really good. Like instant replies. Like if you ever need your formatting done, like this is who you need to go to.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And you've created the whole group there. That is so great. What other resources would you recommend to up and coming writers? Are there any particular books you would recommend, or anything like that?
I have tried reading like the writing help books. Like I tried reading the Stephen King one.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. I got like halfway in and I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And then I do have, is it Save the Cat Rider novel or something?
Oh, yep. Yep.
And it's really good, but my brain really struggles to concentrate on books that aren't like fiction.
Yeah. You're a doer.
So
You're just like, you're one of those people that I feel like you're just one of those people that have to go out and do it. And I think that's a great thing too. And I think that this is something that all writers can take on board, is that we all work so differently. Like no one has the same process. Yeah. It's like, if that's what works best for you, absolutely. Like you just got to go out and take action do that. So that's really great. Excellent. Now a couple of other questions. When it came to publishing it's 4 books, is it? No, it's 3, the trilogy.
Yeah, the 3 trilogy.
The 3 trilogy. Sorry.
You're right.
How did you go about? So did you how did you go about building those? Like, did you leave so much apart between the books of when you were to release the next one, or kind of just went with it?
I think I have like between 6 months and a year between each novel.
Yeah.
But last year I published Immortal Awakening, and then I think like 2 months later Enchantment of Darkness came out. So I was like, that was a big time frame.
Yeah.
Because I just had them both ready there, and I'm like, well, I may as well. Like,
yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just gonna sit on my computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put them out there.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why I want to sort of have with my dark fantasy. I sort of have the second one nearly done when I get the first one back from my editor, so then it can sort of be more quicker, so people don't have to wait so long and sort of lose that initial interest.
100%. And when you've got a series too, it's building that people want to, it's keeping that hype going and things like that, and building that readership. So excellent. Is there any other final words of advice that you have for up and coming writers on whether they're working on their first manuscript or they're still in the planning stage? I think you are such an inspiration of getting it done and moving forward and making it happen, particularly how much you've got in the works, and you've just kind of kept that in flow and kept that going. So what word of advice would you pass on to up and coming writers?
I would say, like, just keep going. Like, I know how life can get, but like, if you can get it done, like, the end product is worth everything you've gone through. Like, it's an escape. It makes you happy. And like, the big thing for me was, like, I love to share something so special to me with other people. Like, it's like every book is like a little piece of me that I've written out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, don't burn out. That would be my big one.
Yeah.
Take breaks when you need them, because I only just got out of like a writer block. It was like an 8-month long. I couldn't put a word down. Like, there was nothing, because I never gave myself that chance to have a break and breathe and like recover.
Yeah. You've just been on this huge like go when the inspiration's hit, it's gone, and then it's you need to reset and let that flow. So that's great.
But yeah, it's very hard to feel like you're not failing when you're not writing. So like, writer's block is normal. Like, it happens. Like, you just have to breathe through it. Like, you'll get through it, and like, once it's over, it's like Christmas came early.
That is such a great way to explain it. And also too, I think that, the physical writing isn't always the productivity. Like how you said, you were sitting there peeling apples and the inspiration came through. Like, being out in the world and doing other stuff, it can be just as productive to inspiration as well. So thank you so much for joining us today, Shana. I've had an incredible chat. Now, please let everyone know where they can find your books, where to get in contact with you, and
All right. Thank you for having me. You can find my books on Amazon, Dimmicks, I think some are on Barnes and Noble, and what's the other side I was just going to say? Booktopia has them as well. There's another one, but I slipped from my memory.
Yeah.
You can find my book account. It's Shana J. Caldwell Books on Instagram.
Awesome.
I have a Facebook, and it's just Shana J. Caldwell. It's just like me, my friend, and my little author photo. And I do have a website, which is linked in my Instagram bio.
Perfect.
Information in my books.
Excellent. And I'll make sure that all that is on the show notes, because you are just going from strength to strength, and I cannot wait for even all this dark fantasy stuff to come out as well, because you're just absolutely killing it.
That's all right.
Thank you so much for joining us, Shana.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.